Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Steve Latshaw's movie, Jack-O. This is a horror movie. It's a Halloween set horror movie. It has a supernatural murderer. It has the curse of a dead warlock. It has an intergenerational curse. It has bladed weapon murders. It has some gratuitous nudity. Basically all the stuff you want to see in a horror movie. It's quite a low quality film. The acting is often quite wooden and awkward. The dialogue is frequently not that good. The camera work is not amazing. The terrifying costume for Jack-O, or the Pumpkinhead Man, as the kids call this figure, is not really that scary. A lot of the murders are sort of corny, right? Like big spurts of fake blood. One person who accidentally jams a knife in a toaster and gets electrocuted for about 14 minutes. So there's a lot to be critical of here in terms of the general cinematic quality of this film. But again, I suspect is quite low budget, and that's the kind of thing that you expect. This also came out in 1995, which is not a justification because there are excellent movies made prior to 1995, but in 1995, the special effects technology, CGI, things like that, was much more expensive than it is today and was much harder to actually get a hold of. So we've got all of these things. So the movie is basically about these two families, the Kellys and the Macons, who live in this town called Oakmore Crossing. And about 80 years ago, which for some reason they figure is 5 generations. So the chronology on this is not quite right. But about 80 years ago, in 1915-ish, the ancestors of the Kellys killed a guy named Walter Macon, who was believed to be doing some witchcraft. And Walter Macon, before he died, cursed the Kellys, that basically a demon would come back to exact his revenge. The Kellys then subsequently thought they killed this demon. The demon is a pumpkin-headed scarecrow type figure who kills primarily with a scythe, which is actually a pretty good weapon for a horror movie, right? Partially because a scythe has a long reach, which is good because you can kill a lot of people with it. It's good from a killer's perspective. It's not good from a victim's perspective. But there's also a lot of options with a scythe, right? You can sort of swing it and use the little pointed hooked end to, impale somebody. You can sort of pull and use the inside curved bit of the blade for nice beheading or disembowelment or whatever it is. You could theoretically cut off some limbs, although that doesn't really happen in this movie. It's usually more sort of straight single blow type kills, either with disembowelment or beheading. There's not a lot of repeated frantic. I mean, with a scythe, you can't really do sort of repeated frantic stabs the way you could with a knife or a machete or something like that. That's smaller, quicker, and more wieldable. But anyway, so this pumpkin-headed scarecrow demon comes back to exact revenge on the Kellys. It kills several of the Kelly family, but then they I guess, sort of imprison it under a wooden cross of ash wood. And there it stays until 1995-ish, when some young hoodlums out smoking cigarettes and trying to have sex with each other or resist having sex with the skeevy ones, whatever it is, whatever the young people are doing, right? They're out causing mischief on Halloween night. And they're going around because they have heard that there is this old lost cemetery. So they find a gravestone, they find this cross, and one of the guys wants to take the cross out of the ground. And they're like, dude, don't do that. Why would you do that? That's not even fun. That's not even fun mischief. Come up with something better. So they come up with something better, and then that guy goes back and takes the cross out of the ground, which releases Jacko. Yeah, so Jacko ends up killing, I think, all three of them, if I remember correctly. And he just sort of goes around randomly murdering some people. To a certain extent, there is the sort of standard horror movie overlap of anybody who's hooking up gets murdered. Although not really, because Julie Miller. So Caroline Miller is the babysitter of our primary protagonist, Sean Kelly. Julie is Caroline's sister, and she doesn't hook up with her boyfriend Jim, but she's trying to seduce him in the woods when they've randomly stopped his motorcycle. So, you know, that's an interesting one. Jim gets killed because he wants to have sex with Julie. Julie initially wants to have sex with him. She takes her top off. Then she hears Jacko moving around in the woods, and she's like, this is creepy. I don't like this anymore. Turned off. We're done. We're done, Jim. And so Jim is like, well, you can get your own ride back because I'm a dick. So Jim gets murdered. We don't really care. Too bad. Good. He was an ass. And he wasn't even cool with his motorcycle and leather jacket and his in-your-face attitude. Yeah. So, but it is interesting that Julie does not get killed. Caroline Miller, played by Lena Quigley, we have a pointless extended shower scene of her where she's just in the shower naked, and it serves no plot purpose. Like, it literally, there is no good reason for it to be in the movie. Normally, again, that's the kind of thing that in a horror movie is going to get you killed. All that Caroline gets is sort of bashed in the face with the back end of the scythe so that Jacko can go after Sean Kelly. So that actually is an interesting divergence, right? So the kids who unleashed Jacko, they do get killed. Jim wants sex if he gets killed. The two women who are most closely associated with sex in the film don't get killed. Julie's boyfriend gets horrifically killed, and she's probably traumatized by having his head literally just sort of roll into her lap. Carolyn gets bashed in the face. So, I mean, they don't come off unscathed. There's two fucking uptight bullshit waspy motherfuckers. They both get killed, so that's totally fine. A random fucking electrician or something, power company guy just out doing his job. I don't know why he's out doing his job alone. That seems like an OSHA violation to me, but I don't work in like Department of Public Works or something like that. But he gets killed for no particularly good reason. He just happens to be there. But anyway, so they're like, this is the whole sort of central portion of the movie, is Jacko is sort of just going around killing people seemingly somewhat at random, while theoretically looking for Sean Kelly. At the same time, Vivian Macon shows up in the Kelly household. She is a descendant, obviously, of Walter Macon, the warlock who was killed. And she shows up in a somewhat suspicious way. And this, I feel, is very 1995. Because basically So Sean's little fucktard friend, who is basically just a dick to everybody in the movie, wants to throw rocks at her car. And Sean is like, hey man, don't throw rocks at a random person's car. So she gets out of the car, goes over to where Sean is actively getting beaten up by this other kid, stops the fight, then walks Sean home. This is a random adult that none of them know, walking their kid home. And I feel like today, in 2025, many suburban parents would be like, hey, random woman, get the fuck away from my kid. What are you doing? That's not your kid. Don't be with a kid that's not your kid and that you don't know. But instead, the Kellys are like, oh, thanks for walking our son home. Want to hang out in our home for a while? We're working on this haunted garage project. Do you want to be involved? And Vivian is like, yes, I'd love to be involved. Also, coincidentally, I'm writing a book about our families. That's not weird at all, is it? No. And so everybody is sort of on board with that. But Vivian seems to have an understanding, apparently because of like dreams and nightmare visions or something like this of her ancestor, Walter Macon, that Jacko is coming, he's going to target Sean, and that Sean is the only one who can kill Jacko. Vivian doesn't lead with that, which is smart on her part, but she does eventually tell the Kellys, yeah, your ancestor kind of brutally murdered mine, he put a curse on your family, and now this pumpkin-headed scarecrow demon is going to come and try and kill your son, and I'm here to try and stop that all from happening. And they do not necessarily believe her, but then about 3 seconds later, they're like, yeah, that seems quite probable, and I accept the legitimacy of what you're saying. So, that all happens. Sean, who I haven't really talked about, but is kind of the protagonist of the movie, is not a particularly well-developed character. He's a little kid. He's into horror. He wants to go trick-or-treating, but his parents are doing their haunted garage thing, which incidentally is to raise money for charity. So like, I don't like begrudge them, neither of them going and taking their kid trick-or-treating or just letting their kid go around because it's 1995 and that's what people did. But like, he's big into horror stuff. You can tell that he's a wimpy nerd because he's got glasses. But yeah, so like he ends up having to basically fight Jacko to the death, which basically ultimately means that he sort of impales Jacko with the ash cross. So that's that. Then the weirdest bit for me of this movie, but also kind of a bit that I strangely love because of how weird and random and unrealistic it is at the end of the movie, after Jim and a bunch of their neighbors and random power guy and some local teenagers and Vivian, spoiler alert, have all been killed by Jacko. They've had this traumatic experience. Sean was partially buried alive before digging himself out of the grave to take on Jacko as Jacko went after his parents. They're just like the three Kellys and the Miller sisters are just fucking strolling down the road at dawn in their suburban neighborhood, November 1st now, and they're basically just like, let's get some pancakes. Right? Wouldn't pancakes be awesome right now? or something like it. I think the mom wants pie, right? They're just like, let's go get a nice dessert, or let's go get a nice breakfast, like real sugary, nice breakfast, because nothing follows up a night of Halloween candy eating like a sugary breakfast. Very healthy. But like, I love that, right? They've just had this incredibly traumatic experience, the kind of thing that realistically you would need years of therapy to recover from, if you ever recover from it. And they're just fucking walking along being like, yeah, here's what kind of breakfast I'm feeling like. And it's such a bad ending to a movie because it completely ignores what has literally just happened to them that they would in fact be needing to process, right? Nobody in this group is freaking out. Nobody is like having a panic attack. Nobody is even trembling with terror, anxiety, fear, whatever it is. Nobody's mourning the loss of any of the people who have died. They're literally just moving on with their lives like nothing has happened. And it's gloriously a terrible ending.